Hello and welcome to Voices of the 21st Century Author Spotlight, a show dedicated to sharing the messages of women from around the world who show up and share their truth. My name is Gail Watson, founder and CEO of Women Speakers Association. And today we are asking the question, how much does our past influence who we are today? I have the proud honor of introducing to you two-time international best-selling author Anne-Marie Dekker, who is co-author of Voices of the 21st Century, Woman Transforming the World, which this book has reached bestseller in 4 different countries and has gone #1 in 10 different categories. So please join me in welcoming Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Gail. It's a pleasure to be here and actually an honor to be here because it's wonderful to be part of this group. And it was as exciting as the first time.
Well, I love that you were part of the very first Voices of the 21st Century, women who influence, inspire, and make a difference in this world. And at that time, we just thought it would be one book.
I know. And, you know, the anxiousness that went behind how to get it to bestseller, let alone international bestseller, was really exciting. I mean, it was, I can't remember how many emails I sent out. And I thought, it doesn't really matter if people don't like me anymore. It's okay.
Good for you. Anyway, let's dive into your story because, you know, what I really enjoyed about your story is you just bring a beautiful honoring of your parents. So what I'd love to chat about is, first of all, what inspired you to share this story?
Well, what inspired me really is the story that I wrote for this book is actually 2 different chapters in a memoir that I'm writing. And I wanted to, my mother is quite a force, a very good influence force in the family. But I also wanted to dedicate it to my father because without him and his unflinching support for her, she could be who she was. She was very determined, very determined. In fact, when I was very young, I always looked up to her and I always thought, oh God, I hope I'm going to be like her sometime. Sometimes I didn't like it because she would tell me what was wrong with some of my friends, or not what was wrong, but that I should be careful. And I thought, what do you know? You know? But no, it's really about my parents and how we had to resettle in a country that was completely foreign to them, to us. You know, they were of a certain age, not very old, but still they were of a certain age. They had a family of 7 children. I was one of the youngest ones. So as a younger one, you adjust more easily than your parents do, of course, or even your older siblings. And I thought many times about that process that they gone through, as well as the process and how they made that decision. Because as I went into the coaching business and I really wanted to understand more about listening to people, I go back to the conversation that I overheard in the middle of the night that they had about if they should leave and resettle somewhere else. And, you know, it was really a conversation of, well, you want to do this, but I want to do that. No. Each one of them really gave the other time to express themselves. My dad wanted to stay. That was a country he just loved. And in fact, one of my stories about him is how I felt he lived in exile all those years since he left. But my mother was more, she was more, you know, about what was good for the family, what was good for her children, and what was good for the future of the family to come. And so it was very tough for them. And also we couldn't tell people that these are decisions we were making, or that my parents were making. I wasn't making them. I just went along with whatever happened. So And then the story is also really about how they were comfortable once they had made that decision and settled in this new foreign, what I call foreign country. Even though we could speak the language, we had the passport of that country. We weren't like refugees, but we were treated like refugees. and it was really God, I just lost my train of thought, but doesn't matter. Yeah, it was the comfort that they had with being uncomfortable. And to me, when I look back on my business or relationships, I think about that many times because it's so easy to feel uncomfortable, not want to do something about it. And you know, so it's my chapter is really about resilience, determination, hope, grace, but above all about love.
I love that. Well, and you forgot wisdom, because
Oh, and wisdom, yes.
the one thing that having had the privilege of being able to connect with you for so many years and have many, many conversations, you always bring wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
So at the end of this, I'm going to ask you for words of wisdom. So
Oh, wow.
be prepared. It just came to me. So we're going to do
Oh,
that
goodness.
because we have to share you with the world. Anyway, as you wrote this, and it's a beautiful story, and it's when you think of the courage that your parents had to have to pack up, move 7 kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, not just down the street, but to another country.
Mhm.
The
The continent.
new continent, new culture, everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So as you think of when you wrote this and you imagine the reader reading your story, what is some of the key takeaways that you want that reader to have?
It's really about being able to adjust, because in our lives, we have to adjust all the time. And adjustment is not easy, doesn't come easily. Sometimes we're willing to adjust and other times we're not. And oftentimes when I'm stuck, I always think about my parents. I think about the decisions they had to make, because my story is really about the move. It's not so much because, you know, we couldn't write a whole book about it. It wasn't so much about, you know, how we settled, what happened and all that. I mean, you know, we all did really well out of the move, but it was an adjustment for my parents. It was, like I said, especially an adjustment for my father, because he really did not want to move from the country and the climate that he loved, and where his family from his mother's side were entrenched in that culture. And so I think about that a lot. My mother was very good in helping him adjust. Sometimes she was frustrated, as we all do and get. And but it was never, you know, and even now today, as I talk to my family members, we all come away without having discussed this until I wrote this, we all come away with almost similar emotions and feelings. And so I'm not writing on their behalf, but I think they can recognize themselves. And that's why I think when people read my story, they can I hope at least they can recognize themselves. And it has nothing to do with moving from one country to another. It has to do with so many other things in your life: change of job, change of relationship, starting a family, and losing loved ones. You know, those are all big adjustments one has to make. And how do we do that?
Yeah, change is big, and with change comes grief at some level. Now, I know this is what you're doing in your business on different levels. Why don't we talk a little bit about how you are working with people?
Okay, what I call myself a story catcher. And people say, what's a story catcher? Well, I really learned, as I said, by having listened to my parents is that listening is a very important, what is the word I'm looking for? It's very important to know how to be a listener, and not to listen how to reply, but to listen and to ask questions and to be curious and to explore with the other person what possibilities there are. What are some new landscapes that can be developed? And so this is what I do with, or I hope I do with people, because they have to join into that conversation, of course. And it's just, I love it. I love listening to people. I love listening to what people have to say. And I also when I talk about listening with others, I'm not talking about just using your ears. I'm talking about using all your five senses, because we listen with our smell, we listen with our words, we listen with our eyes, we listen with our ears, we listen with our touch, and we forget that we do that. So when people say, oh, you listen, and they always think it's about listening with the ears, no, you have to also go in and say, what is your gut telling you?
Yeah, and I have to say, you are an amazing listener. And one of the, it's something that I strive to personally be like, is more like you, to be a great listener, because in your presence, and that in just a conversation, you are fully present, you are fully there, you are listening with all five senses. So thank you for that. You're just amazing. And in your presence, you always just feel special, or I do anyway. I know I feel special every time.
I look back on when we became friends, and that was by pure luck. And how fortunate was I? And you have always been gracious, very giving, and you are a good listener. You do listen really well. That's why I like being with you. And that's why I think Women Speakers Association works so well for so many people, because you give people a platform to really speak. And it's not about, just speaking. It's really giving them a platform to talk about who they are, to talk about why they want to tell their story. And this is why, I think we work well together. And that's why I truly, honestly believe so much in Women Speakers Association.
Oh, thank you. And there's a lot more to come. So if you're listening, just sit tight, because we have some cool things coming. Anyway, Anne-Marie, I'm thinking of, there's many people out there listening who need to get a copy of your book. So where can we find a copy?
Well, I haven't posted on my website yet, bad girl. But they can get it from me at Anne-Marie, ANNEMARIE, at four, spelled out, FOUR, loves with an S, coaching.com.
Anne-Marie at forlovescoaching.com. So go ahead, go pick up a copy of that book. But I'm also thinking this would be a great book to give somebody, if you know somebody who's experiencing change, if they're going through a simple move, maybe they've come and moved into the country you're living in, or they've moved out of the country you're living in, just to reassure them that the gifts, really what this story is sharing about is the gifts that come from change and from what our parents have given us. So just some beautiful, beautiful pieces there. So you said earlier on, Anne-Marie, you wish you could be like your mother, or you hope you turned out like your mother. What's the answer?
Very close.
Well, we'll ask your siblings.
Ask my siblings, yeah. Well, I'm number 6 in line. And it's very, maybe they don't agree with me, but I really find they ask me a lot of advice, or not so much advice as just what do I think about it. And I have a very good relationship with my family, with all my siblings. I, had two great losses of two siblings just recently. But it was just our family is, I credit our parents so much about who we are and how we raised each of our children. And now I'm watching to see those children raising their children. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I mean, Mom, I remember sometimes very harsh in her opinion, but sometimes she would say, well, that's my opinion. I'm not giving you advice.
And I think we've had conversations like that where you've actually said that to me. So I'm going to give you a yes. You're like Mom.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, as I said earlier, I get the gift of being able to tap into your wisdom all the time, wisdom on call.
Thank you. But you have a lot of wisdom too. Actually, we all have wisdom. That's why I talk about wisdom behind your story, because we do. We just don't realize how much wisdom we have.
But you are talented at being able to extract those stories that are maybe hidden, that are hiding from within, that people didn't even know they had. That is a true gift that you have 100%.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're a story catcher and you're a story finder.
Yes.
Well, anyway, it's been great chatting with you today. And I would love for you to share your final words of wisdom with our listeners today.
All right, final word of wisdom. So I talk about, that my story is also about resilience. And when you go into the dictionary and find out what's resilience, I wrote this down. The definition goes, it gives one recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. I think that's too easy a definition, because resilience is really about self-care, about meditation, about listening, and about caring. And, because there's lots of toughness out there in the world. And you can't just suddenly say, well, I'm going to be, or difficulties, I'm going to be tough, I'm going to overcome this. You can't. So think about yourself, about how can you give self-care to yourself first. I think that's the most important part of resilience.
I love it. How do we give self-care to ourselves? It's an important one.
Yeah.
You are amazing, awesome, beautiful, fun. I love spending time with you and talking with you. And I'm glad that we've had the opportunity to share you with the rest of the world, because everybody.
Thank you. Wouldn't do it without Women Speakers Association.
Yes, exactly. So I hope you've enjoyed what Anne-Marie had to share with us today. Do go to her website, forlovescoaching.com, FOUR. So spell it loves with an S, coaching.com, and email her directly at Anne-Marie at forlovescoaching.com. Get a copy of your book, pick up some more copies, share it along to some of your friends and colleagues. Let them know that you see them. Let them know that you support them. And Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Gail. It was an honor.
The honor's all mine, for sure. And we wish everybody listening today, wherever you are in this world, we wish you a great day. Thanks.